for cutting off my parents after they demanded that I fund my sister's luxury trip? My name is Jillian and I started working at 16 not because I enjoyed it but because there was no other choice. In my house there never seemed to be money for me, but for my sister Sabrina there was always enough. She is 6 years younger than me, and for as long as I can remember, the scales always tipped in her favor. I remember perfectly the day I said, "That is it." It was over some sneakers for gym class. The ones I had were worn out. The soles were peeling off and every time I ran, I felt like my foot was going to slip out. I went to the kitchen with the sneakers in my hand and told my mom, Monica, that I needed new ones. Her reaction was as if I had asked for a piece of jewelry. "Jillian, do you think money grows on trees?" she sighed. She opened her wallet with a slowness that made me angry. She took out a few bills and put them in my hand. "Let's see, there are $40 there. Make $40 work." I swallowed hard. I tried not to let my face show anything because if I did, I knew what was coming. A scolding, a lecture, and the "what an ungrateful girl" look. "Thanks," I said, and I walked out. That same afternoon, I saw my parents take Sabrina shopping at the mall. They did not even hide it. They left as if it were nothing, very calmly. They returned with bags from several department stores. My sister came back happy, as if she had won something. She had 3 new outfits, a huge stuffed unicorn, and a tablet for school, according to my mom. I did the math in my head. In a single afternoon, they had easily spent $600 or $700. And it was not something exceptional, it was normal. When I asked for money for a school field trip, my dad, Daniel, made me explain in great detail what it was for, what I would learn, who was going, what time I would return, and then he gave me the money with a speech about responsibility, as if he were signing a contract. In contrast, Sabrina would throw a fit in a toy store, raise her voice and leave with whatever she wanted. My parents calmed her down by buying her things, and if I said anything, they would turn to look at me as if I were the problem. My friend Claire's parents owned a coffee shop, a small, nice place, one of those where it always smells like freshly ground coffee. It was close to my high school, and I often went there to do homework. One day I heard them talking, saying they needed someone to help on weekends. I did not even think about it. "I can," I blurted out. Both of them turned to look at me. "You?" said Claire's dad, surprised. "Yes, I can come on Saturdays and Sundays. And during the week after school." I heard myself sound so sure that even I was surprised. They asked for my information and an adult's phone number for emergencies, and that same day we agreed. I started the following weekend. I began working after school and on weekends. It was not a great salary, just minimum wage plus tips, but it was mine. Most importantly, it was the first time I felt that something depended on me. I did not say anything to my parents, not for fear that they would forbid me from working. It was worse. I knew that if they found out, they would find a way to take the money from me. I did not doubt it for a second. For 2 months I saved almost everything. There were days when I walked to save on bus fare or brought food from home to avoid spending. With that money plus the tips, I bought my gym sneakers, clothes that actually fit me well, and opened a basic savings account. It was not much, but seeing it grow gave me something I had never had, control. Until one Saturday, everything came crashing down. It was afternoon, and I was behind the counter preparing a latte. I turned and saw my mom enter with Sabrina. They were walking in casually, but as soon as she saw me, my mom froze. Her face went from surprise to a kind of annoyance that made my skin crawl. "Jillian," she said, as if I were doing something illegal. "What are you doing here?" "I work here," I replied and continued with what I was doing. "For 2 months now." Sabrina looked at me as if I were a strange creature. My mom did not order anything or ask anything else. She just glared at me, took Sabrina by the hand and left. Just like that, without another word. I knew that night was going to be difficult. When I arrived home, both of my parents were sitting at the kitchen table. It was not a family dinner. It was an interrogation. "Why didn't you tell us you were working?" asked my dad. I shrugged. "I didn't think you'd care." "Of course we care," said my mom. But her voice did not sound worried. It sounded calculating. "How much do they pay you?" When I told them I brought in between $500 and $800 a month depending on tips, I saw something shift in their faces. It was not pride. It was not "that's great." It was something else. My dad cleared his throat. Well, if you're living under this roof, eating our food, and using our electricity and water, it's only fair that you contribute. I stared at him, unsure if he was serious. Half, he added, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Half of what you earn goes to household expenses. I felt the heat rising to my face. What? I said. My mom cut in quickly. Sabrina needs a new winter coat, and we were thinking of signing her up for dance classes. You know that costs money. Then I understood. It was not to pay for utilities. It was to keep spending on Sabrina as always, only now with my money. No, I said softly, and I was surprised by how firm it sounded. That money is mine. I earned it. I'm not giving you half for Sabrina's dance classes. The silence became dense. My dad clenched his jaw. You're an ungrateful girl, my mom blurted out with the same tone she always used to make me feel small. I did not answer. I went to my room and calmly closed the door. Inside I was shaking. From that night on things changed. My parents did the bare minimum. They fed me, yes. They gave me a roof, yes. If I absolutely needed something, they bought me the cheapest possible version with a look of annoyance. But outside of that, it was as if I no longer existed. If I had a school event, they did not go. I once sang in a choir concert, and they did not even show up. I won an essay contest and they said nothing. I felt like an unwelcome guest in my own home. The only person who stood by me was my grandmother Evelyn, my dad's mom. She was nothing like him. She started going to my school events. She applauded louder than anyone. She asked me how I felt, what I wanted to do, what worried me. Sometimes she would take me for ice cream and just listen without rushing me, as if my voice mattered. In my senior year of high school, I was working as much as I could. I saved almost everything I earned. I started looking for scholarships, financial aid, anything to get out. I knew college was my escape. On graduation day, my parents showed up for 5 minutes. They took 2 photos with me. Then my dad checked the time and said, "Let's go." We promised Sabrina we would take her to the movies. She's been very patient. They left before my name was even called. I remained standing in my cap and gown, watching them leave. I did not cry. I think I was already used to it. My grandmother stayed, and when I walked across the stage, she screamed as if I had won a championship. Afterward, she took me to dinner at a nice restaurant to celebrate. 2 weeks later, there was an awkward family dinner, one of those where everyone sits at the table but no one really talks. I decided to make my announcement. I was accepted into college. I start in August, I said. My dad did not even look up from his plate. We can't pay for that, he blurted out. Not with Sabrina's tuition at her private school. The dismissive tone in his voice made it sound like a line he had been waiting years to deliver. I smiled. I don't need your money. I got a full scholarship. Everything is covered. Their forks stopped halfway to their mouths. My mom took a moment to react. Oh, how nice for you, she said, as if I had just told her I had changed my hairstyle. Then, without missing a beat, she turned to Sabrina. Tell Jillian about your science project. It won first place. Sabrina started talking about a volcano made with a store-bought kit, one of those projects my mom clearly assembled for her. As I listened, I realized something that scared me more than anger. I felt nothing at all. The next day, I packed a suitcase and went to live with my grandmother Evelyn. She opened the door for me as if she had been expecting me her whole life. That summer was the best I had had in years. I kept working at the coffee shop, saving as much as I could for college. With my grandmother, life was different. She asked how I was, gave me space, and took care of me without suffocating me. One night, as we sat in the living room, she told me, I'm going to send you $1,500 a month for your housing. Don't argue with me. I almost dropped my cup. Grandma, that's so much. She waved her hand dismissively. I want you to live close to campus and in a safe place. Your grandfather left me well off, and I want to use my money to help the people I love. And you're first on that list. In August, I moved to Pittsburgh for college. I found a room in a simple student apartment building. It was a small room, but to me it was freedom. It was closing the door and knowing that no one was going to demand I make myself invisible. My roommate's name was Kira. She was from Chicago and very quiet. We did not become close friends, But we respected each other's space, and that was enough for me. Throughout college, I spoke to my grandmother twice a week. She was my anchor. My parents called maybe once a month, and it was always the same conversation. "How's school going?" my mom would ask. "Good," I would say. "That's good. Hey, did I tell you that Sabrina got straight A's again?" They never visited. Not once. When there was a parents' weekend at the university, I would get together with friends whose parents also could not or would not come. We would make our own plans and pretend it did not matter. 4 years later, I graduated with honors. I started looking for work immediately. I never thought about returning to the area where I grew up until I was offered a position at a large financial firm in New York City. It was one of those opportunities that do not come along twice. My advisor told me, "Take it. It's rare for them to hire recent graduates. Someone saw something in you." I moved, but not back to my parents' house. I rented a small apartment in Queens, far from their home in the Philadelphia suburbs. It was not luxurious, but it was mine, and the peace it gave me was priceless. I did not let them know I was back. Why would I? They had not even acknowledged my graduation. My grandmother, on the other hand, was thrilled that I was closer. "Now I can feed you properly," she joked the first time she visited, arriving with enough homemade food to last a week. My job was intense from day one. I started as a junior analyst, which in practice meant doing everything no one else wanted to do. Reports, revisions, number crunching, and month-end closes that left you exhausted. I stayed late, arrived early, and volunteered for complicated projects. 2 years later, I was promoted to senior analyst. It came with a better salary, more responsibilities, and a small office that, to me, felt like a medal of honor. Instead of easing up, I pushed even harder. One day, the area director, Mr. Thomas Montgomery, called me into his office. "Jillian, I'm putting you in charge of the Vance account." I felt my heart stop. Vance was one of our biggest and most demanding clients, the kind who speak to you as if they are doing you a favor. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Absolutely. You've earned this opportunity. Don't mess it up," he said with a smile, but his eyes were serious. For 3 months, I lived and breathed that account. I reorganized their portfolio, moved investments, lowered risks, and sought new returns. I fell asleep thinking in numbers. When I presented the new strategy to their board, they were silent for a full minute. I felt like I was running out of air. Finally, Mr. Richard Vance said, "At last. I think we've found the person we need." Not only did they stay with our firm, but they also increased their investment. Mr. Montgomery was ecstatic. They held a meeting, recognized me in front of everyone, gave me a substantial bonus, and raised my salary again. That night, I spoke to my grandmother. "I told you that you could do it," she said proudly. "Now promise me you're going to rest. You deserve it." "I will," I answered. "And I have something for you." The next day, I went to see her with 2 envelopes. In one was an elegant bracelet, a gift to thank her for everything. In the other were 2 tickets for a luxury cruise. "What is this, Jillian?" she asked, opening the envelope carefully. "You and I are going on a trip. Next month, all expenses paid." It was a beautiful vacation, the kind you enjoy without rushing. We had leisurely breakfasts, watched the sea, took long walks, and just spent time together. I uploaded a few photos to social media, something I rarely did. It was partly for the memory, but I will admit, it was also because I wanted to feel that my life finally looked the way I had always dreamed it would. 3 days after we returned, I got a call from a number I hardly ever saw anymore. "Hello," I answered. "Jillian, my love," my mom said with a voice that was far too sweet. "It's been so long since we've seen you. Your dad and I were thinking, why don't you come for dinner on Sunday? Your dad is going to make his famous pot roast." I should have said no. It was obvious there was a motive, but my curiosity won. "All right," I replied. "What time?" 6. "And Jillian, we're so proud of you. We always knew you were going to achieve great things." It was such a blatant lie that I did not respond. I just said I would be there. On Sunday, I left early because I knew the highway traffic could be heavy, even on a weekend. Arriving at the house felt weird, as if I were visiting a place that was no longer mine. Everything was the same. The faded paint, the plants my mom cared for as if they were more important than me, and the basketball hoop my dad had put up for Sabrina, but not for me. I was never athletic enough for him. My mom opened the door before I could even knock, smiling as if she were receiving a guest of honor. My dad stood behind her, also looking happy. It was disconcerting. Jillian, my mom said, hugging me tightly. You look incredible, so professional. I returned the hug, but I felt stiff. Thanks. They ushered me in, offering me water, soda, and snacks. The conversation was painfully polite, focused on the weather and neighborhood news, until we sat down for dinner. My dad cleared his throat. So Jillian, tell us about your work. You're at a big firm, right? You're like a boss now. I did not fall for it. I had no intention of telling them my position or my salary. I'm doing well, I answered. I'm happy. To change the subject, I asked, where's Sabrina? She isn't here. Both of their faces changed as if I had pressed a button. My mom sighed heavily. Sabrina's at the university, and honestly, it's been a tough adjustment. Between tuition, housing, books, and everything else. My dad quickly added, and work has been slow. We're barely making the mortgage. With her college costs, we just aren't making ends meet anymore. As I listened, it all clicked into place. That's tough, I said. College is expensive. My mom took my hand across the table, acting as if we were close. Jillian, we know we weren't the best parents. We made mistakes, and what we did with you wasn't fair. I stayed still, unable to tell if this was a real apology or just an act. We're so proud of you, she continued, her eyes welling up. And we wanted to ask if you could help us out a little, just until we get back on our feet. There it was. I wanted to tell them to take some responsibility. I wanted to just leave. But something stopped me. It was not for them, it was for me. I did not want to carry that anger for the rest of my life. How much do you need? I asked. The relief on their faces was immediate. My dad even wiped his eyes, playing the victim. $1,500 a month would be enough to manage, he said, for the payments and debts. That's all. My throat tightened. It was the exact amount my grandmother had given me for college. But I had a good salary and I could afford it. All right, I said. I'll set up a recurring monthly bank transfer. They started to cry, thanking me as if I had saved their lives. I felt nothing, no warmth or closeness, just a vague sense that I was doing the right thing, even if they did not deserve it. When I told my grandmother the next day, I thought she would scold me. But she did not. You're a better person than they are, she told me. And that is something you can be proud of. As the months passed, I saw them more often. We had dinner every now and then. Sometimes Sabrina was there when I visited. She had not changed, still carrying herself with the confidence of someone who has never had to worry about a thing. But I quickly noticed something. Even though they were supposedly struggling, Sabrina wore designer clothes, had professionally manicured nails, and sported a new phone. She also had a very expensive laptop, the kind you do not buy when you are counting pennies. I did not say anything. I kept sending the money every month, and my parents continued to thank me in an exaggerated, theatrical way. Then the emergencies started. The car broke down. Can you help us with $300? The water heater is broken. Could you lend us $500? I almost never said no. My work was going well and I kept telling myself it was just money. At the office, I was assigned a huge project, restructuring how we managed our corporate clients. If it went well, a promotion to a director position was almost certain. I threw myself into it, working more hours under more pressure. Months later, I succeeded. The managing director congratulated me in person and gave me the promotion to head of the corporate relations department, with a salary nearly double what I had been earning. That day, I bought a bottle of expensive wine and went straight to my grandmother's to celebrate. I am so proud of you, she told me, clinking her glass against mine. But promise me you will take care of yourself. Not everything is about work. I promise, I told her. I think I might even give myself a chance to date someone. Finally, she laughed. A week later, I went to dinner with my parents. Sabrina was visiting and was carrying a designer handbag that cost more than my first apartment's monthly rent. I arrived happy, wanting to share my achievement at least a little. I got promoted, I announced at the table. An awkward silence fell. My mom was the first to speak. Well, with your new position, you could help us a little more. What do you think if instead of $1,500, you send us $2,250 a month? I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but no one else was laughing. I've already been helping you for months, not to mention the emergencies, I said. Sabrina rolled her eyes. Don't be so selfish, Jillian. It's not like you need all that money for yourself. Coming from her with that expensive bag sitting right next to her, the words hit me like a physical blow. No, I said firmly. The amount stays the same. I'm not increasing it. The rest of the dinner was pure tension. Cold glances, silence, and disapproving faces, as if I were the one failing them. I left early with a knot in my stomach, born more from clarity than sadness. It became painfully clear how quickly their gratitude had turned into a demand. Almost a year passed. Sabrina finished college. I only found out because my mom called to invite me to a special dinner. I arrived thinking there would be other family members or friends, but no. It was just the four of us. Sabrina was beaming. She announced she was going to celebrate with a luxury trip to a tropical resort. My mom settled into her chair, as if she were about to make a major announcement. We were thinking that you could pay for Sabrina's trip as a graduation gift. I froze. Excuse me. It would mean so much to her, my mom said in her signature "don't be cruel" voice. My dad nodded. After all her hard work. Sabrina leaned toward me slightly. The package I want costs around $15,000. I slowly put down my silverware, not out of politeness, but because I was afraid my hand would start shaking if I held on to it. Sabrina has not worked a single day in her life, I said, my voice even. Why would I have to pay for a trip like that? My mom's expression hardened. If you don't help your sister, then you don't count in this family. I looked at them. My sister waiting expectantly as if it were her right, my mom manipulating, my dad silently supporting the charade. And I felt something I had not felt in years: relief. All right, I said calmly. And I'll let you know something right now. I am canceling the monthly transfer. I'm not sending anything anymore. You're on your own. I stood up and walked toward the door. I could hear them talking behind me, calling my name, but I did not turn around. I got to my apartment, opened my banking app, and canceled the scheduled transfer. Just like that, without drama, like flipping a switch. For weeks, they bombarded me with calls and messages. I blocked their numbers. Then the emails started, some pleading, others apologetic. I sent them all to the trash folder. A month later, an invitation arrived for my grandmother Evelyn's 75th birthday party. She was throwing a big celebration at her house. I knew my parents and Sabrina would be there. After all, she was my dad's mother. But I figured that at a big party we could easily ignore each other. That day I got ready with care. I put on a blue dress because my grandmother always said that color brightened my face. I brought her a hand-painted teapot I had commissioned from an artisan. She loved unique, thoughtful things like that. When I arrived, the house was already full of laughter and soft music. I saw my parents and Sabrina immediately. They were by the food table, filling their plates as if nothing had happened. They saw me too but quickly looked away. They did not even offer a greeting, and frankly I did not care. I also saw my cousin Adrian. At family gatherings, he almost always ended up talking about his job in student financial services at a private university. He was the type to quote exact figures even if no one asked. I found my grandmother. She was sitting in her favorite armchair like a queen, wearing a purple dress and a beautiful brooch on her shoulder. When she saw me, her face lit up. "There's my girl," she said, opening her arms. "Always punctual, always thoughtful." I bent down to hug her and gave her the gift. She opened it right there. She brought a hand to her chest when she saw the teapot. "It's precious," she said, turning it over to admire the painted flowers. "I will use this for my tea tomorrow." The afternoon went well. I chatted with relatives I had not seen in years and greeted my grandmother's friends. I managed to avoid my family effortlessly. After dinner was served, the toasts began. One by one, people raised their glasses to congratulate my grandmother. Then my mom stood up with her glass in hand. "To my wonderful mother-in-law," she said with a rehearsed smile. "She has always been a guide, a wise woman, and we are so very grateful." It sounded nice but empty, like something from a greeting card. And then to my horror she turned toward me. "And since I have everyone's attention, I want to say something." My daughter Jillian has decided that family isn't important. She turned her back on us, even though she is doing very well for herself. She refused to help her own sister with a simple graduation gift. A hush fell over the table. I felt my face burning not with shame but with rage. My grandmother fixed her gaze on my mom. "Monica," she said in a stern voice, "this is not the place." But I was done being silent. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I did not care. "Since my mom decided to discuss this here," I said, looking at everyone, "I'm going to clarify it." I took a breath and continued. "For almost 3 years I sent them $1,500 a month. My parents told me it was to pay for Sabrina's university and a student loan." Several faces around the table tensed. No one had expected this. My cousin Adrian furrowed his brow and put down his fork. "That can't be right," he said. "I saw her file when she was accepted. Sabrina got a full-ride academic scholarship. Her tuition and housing were completely covered." The table went dead silent. It felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. Suddenly it all made sense: the designer clothes, the handbag, the new phone. They were not using my money for education. They were using it to spoil her, just as they always had, only now on a much larger scale. I turned to look at my parents. They were pale. "Is this true?" my grandmother asked slowly. Her voice was quiet but dangerous. My dad opened his mouth but nothing coherent came out. It's not what it looks like," he stammered. "Then what is it supposed to look like?" I demanded, my voice no longer calm. "You took over $50,000 from me with lies. You made me believe I was helping to pay for an education when you were really just funding a lavish lifestyle." My mom tried to compose herself. "We needed that money for the house, for bills." My grandmother stood up. She was a small woman, but in that moment she seemed enormous. "Daniel, Monica, get out," she ordered. "Mom, please," my dad pleaded. "No," she said firmly. "You lied to your daughter. You took advantage of her hard work. You are not welcome in my house." Then she turned to look at Sabrina, who was staring at her plate. "And you," my grandmother said. "Did you know?" Sabrina did not answer. She just sat there motionless. That was answer enough. "All of you out," my grandmother repeated. "And Daniel, I'm letting you know I will be speaking with my lawyer. I am not leaving anything to people who behave this way." My mom burst into tears. My dad's face was red with a mixture of shame and anger. Sabrina stood up, her jaw clenched. They left quickly without looking at anyone. After that, the party fizzled out. People started leaving with clumsy excuses. I stayed, not out of obligation, but because I could not leave my grandmother alone. After the last guests had departed, we cleaned up in silence, gathering plates, glasses, and napkins. The air felt heavy. "I'm sorry," I finally told her. "I ruined your party." My grandmother took my hand. "Don't you dare say that," she replied. "You didn't ruin anything. They did this all by themselves." In the following weeks, my grandmother told me that my parents called her constantly. They begged her for forgiveness and pleaded with her not to change her will. She did not yield. One day, as we were drinking tea from her new teapot, she told me, as calmly as if she were discussing the weather, "It's done. I've spoken with my lawyer. Everything goes to you. You're the only one in this family who has shown true character." I took a sip and felt a wave of sadness but also relief. "I never wanted it to come to this," I murmured. "Neither did I," she sighed. "But we don't control the decisions of others, only our own." Since that day, I have not spoken to my parents or Sabrina again. Sometimes their names pop up on my phone from unknown numbers, or a message gets through but I do not answer. Whatever they have to say now, it is far too late. I write this to you with a slightly lighter heart, feeling that by sharing my story we are sitting together, having that cup of coffee I enjoy so much. I know that many of you are hardworking people, the kind who have woken up early your whole lives to build something of your own, and that is why I know you understand me better than anyone. What I have learned and what I want to leave you with is that family love should not hurt, nor should it have a price tag. For years I believed that enduring injustice was my obligation, but thanks to my grandmother Evelyn, I understood that blood makes you related, but only loyalty and respect make you family. Never feel guilty for protecting your peace or your property. If you have a Jillian in your life, cherish her. And if you are the pillars of your house like my grandmother, thank you for having the courage to defend what is right. Your experience and your affection are the refuge that so many of us need. With all my gratitude and respect, Jillian. Comment. I wanted to share this story because it speaks to something many of us struggle with. Learning to set boundaries is one of the most powerful forms of self-respect you can practice. Your kindness is a gift, not an obligation for others to exploit. Taking responsibility for your happiness is the first step toward building a life you truly love. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to choose peace, even if it means letting go. Healing is not always about repairing what was broken, but about creating something new and stronger in its place. Remember, your worth is inherent and not defined by what you do for others. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your successes and support you unconditionally. You deserve relationships where respect and loyalty are the foundation. I hope you always find the courage to honor your own journey. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.